Ta-da! Look at that. Got ourselves a Snowth. Not only that, we got, well, there's that guy, but got two Snowths. And there's other things. But yeah, look at that. Finally done. Collar stopped at their eyelids, eyelashes, horns, lips, arms. Yeah, so there you go. What do you think of that? Yeah, back up. We just got them hanging up on our crate and barrel style puppet rack, which is just a board that we sanded and stained, and got these flagpole holders that are way overkill. I know there's other ways to do it much smarter, but they weren't that expensive, so why not? They're like $6 each, so why not? Yeah, he's on one as well. Sorry, we've officially run out of room for puppets. So yeah, and it's got one of those little barn door like brackets that yeah, is hanging over the door, so you can pick those guys up and hang them over any door that is convenient. They're all hung up that way. That's our closet. What used to be our closet. Anyway, sorry for bad camera work. Yeah, so what ended up happening with these guys? Well, let's see. The lips, that was one thing that I ended up changing at the end. I was debating whether or not they should be foam or fabric. I ended up going with both. So there's a strip of foam in there, yeah, covered in fleece and sewn together and then glued on. I was trying to determine from pictures and videos whether or not they were made out of just dyed or painted foam. I think, well, anyway, in some pictures they definitely are. Look, in more recent pictures they look like they're fleece like that. So anyway, and I had some yellow fleece left over, so that worked out just fine, and it looks better than all the foam I was messing with. I was trying to dye foam and paint it, and it just wasn't working out, looking very good. And it just wasn't, it was a little too thin, so covering the foam in fleece made sense. Kind of fattened it up a little bit. Yeah, I ended up having to put a little extra strip of black, what do you call it, faux suede in the mouth, because there was just a little bit of the pink showing in between. So I put a little strip all the way around before I put the lips on. It seemed to be okay. And the horns ended up getting just kind of poked through the skull, cut a hole in the foam skull, and then a hole in the, or like an X in the fleece, and kind of glued it to the hole. I was able to poke those through. They have a little disc of EVA foam glued into the bottoms of these, so they have a nice little rigid thing to grab onto. So that's glued into place. The eyes are the 2-inch wooden doll eyes, screwed in from underneath, obviously from underneath. It's very satisfying to screw in like eyeballs for some reason, you know, instead of gluing. It just, I don't know, something very easy and satisfying about it. Just goes right into place like it was meant to. It's like it was meant to be. So it was fun. What else? The body ended up sewing on after all the face and stuff was done. I probably could have done that beforehand, because I think the foam skull is flexible enough that you could have that all turned inside out and get it around the head. But it wasn't really much trouble to sew it in place from the outside. I've kind of gotten pretty good at ladder stitching, where you're stitching a seam like that from the outside, where you want the outsides of the fabric to just kind of pull together. It kind of worked. It wasn't that hard. I thought it'd be really fiddly, but the fur fabric is doesn't stretch that much, so it gives you a little bit of structure to work with. So that came together quicker than I thought it would. The arms, I decided not. I was gonna maybe give them the armature arms like he's got, but looking at the old Muppet Show version of Phenomena, they didn't seem to have any structure to their arms. They just kind of flopped. So I just saved myself the trouble. Yeah. On camera, the contrast looks pretty decent between the horns and the skin. This should maybe be a little darker pink or something. But I'm happy with the colors and how they look. All the reference pictures for these guys, all three are, two are the same. They're all different because depending on the lighting and if it was taken from video or whatever, they're all different shades, and depending on what year they're from, they're made a little differently, or they are colored a little differently. My wife and I went a couple of weeks ago to the Museum of the City of New York, where they have some originals of these guys on display. So that was awesome to see them up close. And I gotta say, the Snowths were pretty dang close to the originals that I saw there. I'm not sure if the ones they have on display were ones used in the Muppet Show, if they were made later. Their Phenomena definitely looks different from the one in the Muppet Show. Theirs is, or at least the one on display is, it's one I'd seen pictures of online. He's like magenta. This guy's kind of purple. Again, the lighting, you can't tell, but yeah, he was like, or fuchsia even. I mean, he was like, magenta's not right, probably more fuchsia, which I was kind of surprised by. And they were a little bit darker all around. The pink on the originals, maybe a little more hot pink on the antlers, the horns, the antlers. I like that better. And their fur was a little more hot pink. It almost seemed like it had a two-tone thing going on, like the tips were like either lighter or darker. And same for him. I don't know if that was just age or if that was a look they went for with the fabric they had. The lips on the originals that we saw did seem to be made out of foam that had aged. So perhaps the originals were made like that. I don't know. But what we saw at the museum certainly looked like some old foam that had just kind of yellowed and become a little withered. Their mouths looked maybe a little bit wider than these guys' mouths. But then again, it's hard to tell. I don't know. I think it could just have been the way the foam had deteriorated a bit. What other differences? The one on display of Phenomena, his nose was a little bit higher up, kind of pressed against his, like the middle of, between his eyes right there. But again, I don't know what era that particular one was from, because he sort of looked a little different from ones I'd seen on, like from the Muppet Show, or whatever. I don't know. I know they've rebuilt those characters a few times over the years, so who knows, man. The thing I would do differently if I was making these guys again, I didn't realize until I had already kind of got them all together that the black part of the inside of the mouth needed to be attached to the I got these little pouches for the thumb and for these two fingers on the inside, like that, and those are glued to the top and bottom of the skull. And I thought that would be enough, but then I realized that it needs help. It needs to be able to pull not just the foam, but as much fabric as possible. It needs help to close the mouth. So all that really needs to be attached to whatever's going on with your fingers, just to help it out. The lips with the fabric and the foam, they're squishy and all, but they do add a bit of resistance. So it's a little tougher than I would have hoped to close the mouth all the way. In fact, I just had to re-glue this guy because the bottom had not adhered that well. If I had known that going in, I could have done a better job of gluing it together. Because it all starts inside out. So once I figured this out, I had to glue it from the inside, just getting like a rubber glove, getting a bunch of glue on a finger and having to go up in there and make a mess and hope I glue the right stuff together. So whatever, I could have done that beforehand, a lot cleaner. And yeah, I think there's some ways that could be adhered better to what's going on with the fingers. And I just used some fleece to make the pouches for the fingers, sort of doubled over so it's thicker. And it's okay. I wish it was a little less elastic. I felt like it needed to be a little bit, but I don't know. It's okay. I'm getting about 85 to 90% of the movement out of it that I would have liked. It just takes a little more energy than I would care for it to. So I'd mess around with some different ways to deal with that, perhaps. What was the other thing? What was the other thing I was gonna say? Oh no, I forgot. I had another good point. Was it a good point? Maybe it wasn't. Oh, they are right and left-handed, because the way I made the little sleeves for the fingers, the way your thumb kind of goes in, you want it to be as centered as possible, but just the angle of your thumb is, it seemed like it needed to be right and left-handed, so the way it's glued in, it's sort of angled for your right or your left hand. So he's the right-handed guy and he's the left-handed guy, or she. Are they he's or she's? Maybe they're neither. I shouldn't have brought that up. Sorry. They. Yeah. So that's the left-handed. So yeah, that was a thing that happened. Yeah. But that's okay, I'd like to improve on them. They could be better. You can see that seam there. I didn't really pick the seams out, but you know what? I don't really mind them. here in the room, they don't, it looks fine. I kind of like seams. You can see some major seams on the ones at the museum, especially on their arms. Kind of like that. I left that sewing machine seam the way it is. Their fingers should be just a little longer. I think I made these guys a little stubby. But again, that's okay. It's alright. Very happy with them. Yeah, I think that's all there is to say. Maybe I should show you one moving. I don't know. Let me see if I can do that. Oh, boy. So in our little flagpole holders, I got these. It's just a dowel rod with a handball ball attached to the ends to cushion it. Yeah, we live right by a handball court, so it's easy to find a handball. All right, putting on a puppet. There we go. I know that's not how the song goes. I'm not doing the song. But, hey. Yeah. I don't even know if that's in frame. Can you see it? Anyway, yeah. Moves alright. It's okay. For as much as it actually needs to move, it's fine. Mostly these things are just hanging out on the wall for my wife and I to look at and enjoy. And there you go. He's right up there. That was some wonderful puppeteering for you, sorry. And while we're here, might as well take a look at Beaker. Hey, Beaker. What's going on? He's dressed very well. He's a very long puppet. He's got these long arms. But when you put them on, they make sense. There's a lady. You may have seen her. Her name's Irma. You got Animal, of course. What's up, Animal? He got me started making Muppets. Let me see if I can do his thing. Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah, he's got a cool blink. It's with made with an external control bicycle brake. Yeah, it should be a control switch in his head. I know how he's done now, but oh well. I always wanted to make one with a external control for fun. I really like his clothing. That came out well. And his collar. I had to make that collar out of EVA foam. And a plastic chain I had to paint. You couldn't find a plastic chain that looked like good, like metal. So I had to paint it. And there's old Julius up there. Just hanging out. He's an old guy. A project puppet base pattern. Built one of those for my mom for her preschool class she was teaching. Not realizing like that's a really large puppet for this lady to deal with. So I made her a smaller one. Anyway, that's been Snowths, man. And phenomena. Oh yeah, maybe he should blink too, because he does that thing. Yeah. Anyway, and that's just a little bit of fishing line with some Teflon tubing going from his head. Yeah. Anyway, here you go. Thanks for checking out the puppets. We're out of room, but I'm sure I'll probably end up making something else soon. Anyway, all right. See you later.